Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. Unfortunately, much though it pains me, I'm going to have to kick off this episode of Mingles with Jingles with a bit of bad news regarding my quest to become an in-game captain in World of Warships. This is the community contributor contest that World of Warships are running called The Ring. Now, as I mentioned in last week's episode of Mingles with Jingles, it's mathematically impossible for me to win the thing due to the way the votes are being counted, but even knowing that, I just thought, well, what the hell, it's all a bit of fun. I'll have a go anyway. At least the video should be amusing. Unfortunately, I can't even get a video done. And I'll show you why. So, the way the whole thing works is actually quite simple. There's a code which you apply to your Wargaming account which activates a personal mission in World of Warships. Now, the mission is simple. All you have to do is get 5 defended ribbons. It doesn't have to happen in the same battle. It can happen over any number of random battles. And what we have to do for the contest, you don't, you can just play the mission and earn the rewards, but we community contributors, the 13 of us who are taking part in the ring contest, have to produce a video of ourselves completing the mission. And so this was my first attempt in HMS Fiji, Crown Colony class, Tier 7 British light cruiser. This was also my last attempt, for reasons which will become apparent more or less as soon as the ship starts moving. So I think to myself, I have to get defended ribbons. So I am going to head over to, not into the Alpha Cap, but I'm going to head to a position. Oh, why is my ship stopped? And now it's going again. Okay. Oh, and it's stopped. And it's going again. And again. You see, what's happening is it's the summer holidays here in the UK. And all of the happy little idiots, that's, children to you, are home, and they're all using the internet at the same time. Which means that my contention rate, and this happens every year at this time of year, is in the toilet. It wouldn't be so bad if my ping was stable. I could handle, a 35 millisecond ping would be fantastic. I could live with a 200 millisecond ping. Hell, I used to play X-Wing versus TIE Fighter many, many years ago on the Microsoft Internet Gaming Zone. Anybody remember that? And a 500 millisecond ping was standard. But it was constantly at a 500 millisecond ping. And what I'm experiencing now are spikes between 35 and 150, and then 35, and then 200. And it's these spikes that are making, well, any kind of online multiplayer gaming just about impossible. For those of you who don't know what an internet contention rate, not connection rate, contention rate is, imagine that you have 100 internets. Now, during the normal course of events, you only have 70 to 80 people trying to use those 100 internets, and that's fine, because there are internets to spare. But when there are suddenly a lot more people, for whatever reason, trying to use those 100 internets, like, for example, during the school summer holidays, when there are 200 to 300 people trying to use the same 100 internets, everybody suffers. There just aren't enough internets to go around, and that's pretty much what happens every year during the summer holidays. The summer holidays started last week, and the contest started this weekend. It's not been fun. And the thing is, it's so unpredictable. I can have entire minutes going by when everything's fine. I have a stable 35 millisecond ping. But you never know when you're going to get hit by one of those lag spikes. And it's usually the case that it happens at the worst possible time. Like, for example, when you're on perilously low health, and you absolutely definitely need to score multiple citadels on the French heavy cruiser that's broadsiding you at point blank range. But no matter how hard you hammer that fire button, you're caught in the middle of a lag spike, your guns won't fire, and you die. So what's the solution? Well, you could try not playing World of Warships when everybody's trying to use the same limited amount of bandwidth, but if you wait until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because it's the summer holidays, when all of the happy little idiots have gone to bed, the World of Warships matchmaker looks like this. This isn't me, by the way, this is Infected Dragon in the Lyon who sent this replay in last week. And I thought this was the perfect opportunity to squeeze this particular match into an episode of Mingles with Jingles, purely and simply because, well, this is entirely representative of what World of Warships looks like if you are in the UK during the summer holidays with Virgin Media as your internet service provider and you're waiting until you actually have a stable ping before you attempt to play the game. Now, I suspected this was going to be the case because, well, the summer holidays started last week, and I have definitely noticed a degradation in my internet performance. I can't watch Twitch in 720p with 30 frames per second without it stopping to buffer every 10 or 15 seconds. Been trying to watch movies on Amazon Prime. Funnily enough, it turns out that 3 Billboards Outside Ebbings, Missouri, even if you have to watch it in 480p, is still a fantastic movie. But it's still 480p. I realise that these problems happen every year at the same time. And in fact, last year, when the same thing happened, and I contacted my ISP, Virgin Media, by the way, because they do offer the fastest broadband speeds in the UK, but they don't guarantee those fastest broadband speeds. There's that bit of the small print about the internet contention rate. And so when I had these problems last year, I phoned them up and booked an engineer appointment, and they said they couldn't get an engineer out to me within 4 days. Well, at this time last year, I decided, I'm not standing for that anymore. And Virgin do offer a package called Homeworks, which adds an extra £10 a month onto your bill, but they guarantee next working day engineer call-outs if you phone up with a problem. So I thought, well, if this happens again next year, like now, I'm not sitting around waiting 4 days to a week for an engineer. I want it sorted quickly. So I signed up for this Homeworks package. Now, it's not that much of a problem for me. Admittedly, the timing of this contest couldn't have been a hell of a lot worse, although, realistically speaking, I was never going to win it anyway. But I thought I'd at least have a go and get one video out. Rita, on the other hand, has been unable to live stream since the start of the summer holidays. So this is a much, much bigger deal for her. Well, she's been at the War and Peace show all week, but she got back on Sunday, unable to stream, still. And so she actually phoned my ISP and booked an engineer appointment. No problem, madam, they said. We'll get somebody out to you on Wednesday. Right, this is on Sunday. They can't get an engineer out before Wednesday. I said, hang on a minute. Give me that phone. Yeah, I'd like to reschedule that appointment. For the last year, I've been paying £10 a month for the Homeworks package. I'm supposed to have next day engineer call-outs. Just hold on, sir. We'll transfer you to our rescheduling department. Yeah, I understand you're not happy with your engineer appointment. Yeah, you're damn right I'm not. I'm supposed to get next day engineer call-outs. Well, what we'll do for you, sir, is we'll put you to the top of the priority list for any cancellations. So your appointment is still booked for Wednesday the 1st of August, but if anybody cancels, you'll be one of the first people to receive a new appointment. I said, okay, fine. Transfer me to the cancellations department. I'm cancelling this Homeworks package. I mean, seriously, I've been paying for this thing for an entire year, and the one and only time I need it, they can't provide. So I'm pretty sure there's a breach of contract going on there somewhere, but they've probably got their asses covered by the small print. So just, yeah, I'm not paying for this anymore. I'm not getting it, so I'm not paying for it. But I'm making my prediction now. So we've got an engineer coming around, or we have an appointment for an engineer to come around on Wednesday, the 1st of August. Last year, when this exact same thing happened, and we booked an engineer appointment, at the time we'd checked our service status. There were no faults in our area. We knew exactly what it was. It was the internet connection rates. Summer holidays, just everybody's at home, and they're all trying to use the internet at the same time. But they gave us an engineer appointment pretty much just to get us off the phone. And then the day before the engineer appointment, we got a text saying that a fault had been identified in our area, which has now been resolved, and so they've cancelled the engineer appointment. And there was no difference whatsoever to the service. We still had the same shitty service until the end of the summer holidays. So that's my prediction. I'll let you know how it goes in next week's episode of Mingles with Jingles, but I'm predicting right now that the day before this engineer is supposed to come out, so on Tuesday, they're going to miraculously find and fix the fault that they hadn't previously identified in the area, which isn't going to improve anything for anybody, and we're going to get a text message saying that the engineer appointment has been cancelled. But anyway, the long and short of it all is that as far as this ring contest for World of Warships is concerned, while it was mathematically impossible that I was ever going to win in the first place, in fact I was highly likely to be knocked out in the first round, purely because of the way the votes are counted, but I can't even get to the first round. The mission wasn't hard, you know, all you had to do was get 5 defended ribbons. You didn't even have to get them all in the same battle. It's actually a little harder than people realise, because it's not just a simple case of hitting an enemy ship in a cap circle 5 times. That enemy ship has to actually be capping. If the circle is already flipped and belongs to the enemy team, you can shoot enemy ships in that cap circle as much as you like, but you're not resetting any capture progress because it's too late. Also, the ship actually has to have capture progress. So if there's 2 ships in the cap circle, one of them's just entered, doesn't matter how many times you shoot him, he's not accruing any capture points because you're shooting him. So it's still not a difficult mission, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not quite as immediately straightforward as people might think. Also, it helps if you get a domination battle where there's, you know, some actual cap points that have to be defended. If you end up with a standard battle, you have to wait until you're losing, until the enemy team are actually in your cap, before you can try to get the mission complete. But it's not a difficult mission, you know. I'm not unable to do it because the mission's too hard. The mission's easy. It's just the summer holidays, and my internet's in the toilet. It's not just World of Warships, of course, it's everything. I can't watch Twitch without buffering. If I can get a movie to run on Netflix or Amazon Prime, I'm lucky if it's in 480p. Even games that aren't that dependent on a stable internet connection are borderline unplayable. In fact, in some cases, not even borderline unplayable. They're just downright unplayable. World of Warcraft, for example, has always been my little guilty pleasure. I've been playing it for 13, 14 years now. And I've managed to get into the beta test of the new expansion, which is coming out next month, hopefully after the summer holidays are over. And it's actually quite good. In fact, I'm planning on joining Yusrael, who's another World of Warships community contributor, the day the new expansion goes live. Planning to stream it. Probably going to be an all-night stream. But, well, even in World of Warcraft, when an instant cast spell is taken 3 seconds to go off, you know you've got problems. Okay, it's time to go and play something single player. So games like Jurassic World Evolution have been getting a lot of replay over the last week here in the Salt Mine headquarters. But the long and short of it all is that if you're up bright and early and you're looking at the World of Warships Global YouTube channel for my entry into the first stage of the ring contest, don't waste your time. It's not there. I couldn't even get the mission done. So best of luck to everybody else in the contest, and may the captain with the most supportive community, who isn't me, win. I don't want to have to pick favourites at this point, although I do feel a certain solidarity with Jive Turkey from the North American community, because he's also in the contest, and as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, he's also a proud ex-Navy veteran. Jive spent many years in the US Navy submarine service as a sonarman, so my vote's going with Jive, but best of luck to everybody involved. So, if multiplayer gaming is out of the question, you know, even massively multiplayer gaming is out of the question, what can you actually do? It's not as bad as it could have been. I mean, I do still have some kind of internet connection, so I can play. Well, this wouldn't have been a problem 15 years ago. Online activation wasn't a thing. Although I do remember the first time it reared its ugly head. Oh, what was the game? I was actually still in the Navy. And it was Ubisoft. Somehow it always is. It was one of the Rainbow Six games. It might have been Rainbow Six 3, something like that. But it had just come out, and I was due to set off for a 6-month deployment to the Mediterranean. And I thought, I need a game that's going to have a high replayability factor that I can just play on my laptop while I'm away. I had the ideal setup. At the time, I was actually what's known as the tech office writer. So there's a combined technical office on board. Well, there certainly used to be. I don't know if there still is. Probably. Maybe they call it something else. But basically, all of the engineering books and documents for the weapon and marine engineering departments are all held in this place called the combined technical office. And I was the combined technical office writer, so I worked directly with the mostly chief stoker and all of the chief petty officer, artificers and mechanics. filing reports, returns, all that sort of thing. Anytime they needed any kind of documentation, I was the guy they came to. So I had this huge office, pretty much to myself, which kind of sucked because I was also responsible for keeping this massive, huge office clean, which all of the engineers were using on a daily basis. So, that was the only real downside, but I had this huge office all to myself, and I could sit in there all night, if I wanted to, playing games. So I got myself this Rainbow Six game. Didn't really look at the packaging too closely, because I knew that, I had a good laptop. I knew that it satisfied the minimum system requirements, or so I thought. And then the day we sailed, I went to install this thing on my laptop, and it wouldn't even install. I was, what the hell? Come on, install. Why won't you install? It said internet connection required for installation. What? It's a single player game. There were no multiplayer online components to this game whatsoever. But you couldn't even install it without an internet connection. For anti-piracy purposes. This was the start of the whole online activation thing. So that was a massive bummer. 6 months in the Mediterranean with nothing to play. Well, it lasted at least until we got to Gibraltar, and I went ashore and I bought some definite 100% guaranteed, no shit Sherlock, we mean it this time, single player games. But that was a massive blow to morale. It's not quite that bad, of course, because I do at least have an internet connection. And the last time I had to go for any length of time without any kind of internet connection, it's surprisingly limited what you can actually do with a PC. There are some games on Steam that you can play in offline mode. So I have spent an awful long time playing Poker Night 2 at the inventory whenever my internet connection goes down. Games like the Civilization series or Master of Orion, I know for a fact you can play without an internet connection, providing you start Steam in offline mode. Games like that are very, very good for that kind of a situation, because you can start playing something like Master of Orion or Civilization 4 or 5, and the next time you look at your watch, you're starving, your stomach thinks your throat's been cut, you're busting for a piss, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. The only problem, the only fly in the ointment, is that even a game like Poker Night 2 at the inventory, a game like Master of Orion or Civilization, it's no good if it's not installed before you lose your internet connection. Because nobody's selling PC games in shops anymore. Well, they are, but there's a very, very limited selection. It used to be the case you could walk into Game, or, wherever you buy your games from, and one entire wall of the shop would be devoted to PC games. And then the other side of the shop would be split between consoles and, whatever. But they would all have to fight for the shelf space. And there would be hundreds of different PC titles, and nowadays it's the complete opposite. You're lucky these days if there's even a single shelf dedicated to PC titles. And usually you're not actually buying a disc with the game on, you're just buying an online activation code. Which doesn't help if you don't have an internet connection. That's the entire reason you actually moved your fat laddie arse out of your seat and gone outside into the real world in the first place. Because you don't have an internet connection, so you have to go and actually buy a physical copy of a game in a shop. I have to say, I am not too impressed with this whole real-life thing that certain people seem to have going. I mean, the graphics are pretty good, I'll give you that much, but the characters suck. And there's no plot whatsoever. I wandered around Fairham for hours the other day, I couldn't find a single quest giver anywhere. Seriously, real life, sort it out, you shit. Anyway, moving along swiftly. I got an email from the Tank Museum this week. I get an email from just about every month. They publish a regular What's On at the Tank Museum newsletter. Turns out they're having problems with their world-famous Sherman Fury. It's the M4A2 that the Tank Museum own. At least I think they own it. I'm pretty sure they own it. It was used in the movie of the same name. Bit of a problem with the fuel tank valves. It turns out they've broken them and they can't find any spares. So, if you happen to know where to get your hands on a pair of fuel tank valves for the Sherman Fury M4A2 twin diesel engine, be a darling and let the Tank Museum know. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Next up, amongst the myriad of emails that I received since the last episode of Mingles with Jingles, there was one in particular that I wanted to read out to you. and it comes from a loyal salt mine worker by the name of Kyle Rogers, and it goes like this. Hello Jingles, your mightiness. Good start. I wanted to say that your videos and content have had a profound effect in my life, as not much excites me these days because I've either seen it or done it before. This has led me to being very bored, but when I discovered your channel and was introduced to games such as World of Tanks and World of Warships about 2 years ago, that all suddenly changed, and about the only thing I ever look forward to was a video published by you on, I guess you'd say, a daily basis. Yeah, mostly, except for Sunday. I don't particularly hold favourites, though the ones that entertain me more out of all of your content is Mingles with Jingles. Now that's actually quite surprising, but, I'll take it. And when you're showcasing different games, so, not actually World of Warships and World of Tanks. So that is also actually quite surprising. Over these past 2 years, your different videos and such have inspired me to try and build my computer to be prepared for live streaming, seeing as how you are living proof that you don't need to have the confidence of a superstar and be very talented at games to be successful in making gaming videos. Hang on a minute. Was that supposed to be a compliment? What do you mean you don't need to be talented at Well, I can't really argue. You do actually make a very good point there, Kyle. So, I'll backhanded compliment though it may be, I'll take it. My dream in my current age, as I'm retired at 53, is to just entertain the world like I would guests. Many of my friends, and by many I mean about 3, have said that I have the voice of a radio presenter. And so that kind of sparked an idea for me. What if I was to use my voice as a way of making a gaming radio? So I just play music, and in between I talk about random stuff with a background of video games such as World of Warships, and occasionally talk about in-game news. I came to you looking for advice as to whether this is a good idea, because as a loyal fan and salt miner and subscriber, I've seen what you do currently is similar to what I wish to do. I don't wish to do it to make money. My first priority is to entertain, even if it be for free. And seeing as you've become quite successful at it over the years, why thank you. I would just love to know whether what I am constantly thinking about is a good idea from someone who's done it, should we say. If you can answer this complicated question, which has caught me up in a net for months on end, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to read this, if you do. Regards, Carl Rogers. Okay, Carl, first of all, you really need to work up on your compliments. Okay. They're a bit shit. I mean, I'll take them, but they could use some work. Secondly, you just need to do it, Kyle. You really, really do. I mean, I never started all of this with the objective of it becoming what I do for a living. Much like you, I just thought, this seems like fun. I enjoyed doing it, and so I did it. More as a hobby than anything else. It's just extremely lucky. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how lucky I have been that what I originally just planned to do for fun has actually become something that I am more or less able to actually earn a living at doing. I mean, I do still have my Navy pension, so if the bottom falls out of the salt market any time in the immediate future, I'm not completely screwed, but it's enough. I get by, regardless of how hard YouTube and Google keep trying to make it. So, my advice to Kyle, and to anybody who's in a similar situation, and it doesn't have to be thinking of starting up an internet radio gaming station or anything like that. Anything, if you're thinking of doing your own YouTube videos, if you're thinking of starting your own live stream, anything, whatever, give it a go. The very worst thing that can happen is you'll be shit at it. But even then, it's not guaranteed that you're going to fail. I mean, I'm pretty shit at playing games, but it hasn't really hurt me, has it? You never know until you try. That's the thing. Give it a go. It may not work, but if it does, fantastic. And even if it doesn't work, right? Even if nobody watches your live stream, even if nobody watches your YouTube videos, even if nobody listens to your internet gaming radio show, as long as you enjoy doing it, it doesn't matter, because you've already achieved what it was that you set out to do. And if anybody does enjoy what you're doing, even if it's only a handful of people, well, isn't that what you wanted to do? You just wanted to entertain people. You didn't necessarily set out to entertain the entire world, but what you're doing is clearly working for somebody. So even if you're not particularly successful, as long as you enjoy doing it, and you're not intending to entertain the entire world in the process, you've achieved what it was that you set out to do. But you won't do any of that if you don't give it a try. So go for it. Now, Kyle added a little postscript to the end of his message, and it's not that this is the important part, but this is the part that is probably going to be of slightly more interest to most people watching or listening to this episode of Mingles with Jingles. I'm going to read it out for you. I tried contacting you on Discord, so I may invite you to a small server I created called Salt Mines Division 1, of course inspired by the Jingles salt mine. I feel it would be only right if I was to invite the very person who inspired the idea for me to make it in the first place. The few members who have already joined are also fans of your YouTube channel, and I haven't told them my intentions of inviting you yet, because if you do join, I wanted it to be a real surprise then, and I feel it would make them absolutely ecstatic if you did. Kyle, I've joined your channel. In fact, I've actually got it up and running right now. And Angry Dalek and Admiral Suarez, I don't think they're entirely sure that I am who I claim to be. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you for the invite. Now, a Discord server is something that a lot of people have been saying, Jingles, you should start your own Discord server. You should do this, you should do that. Because everybody's got one. Rita's got one, Flambass has one, Flamu has one. They've all got their own servers. I've always resisted doing it, mostly because I'm a lazy bastard. And I didn't want the hassle, on top of everything else that I have to do every day, of also running a Discord server. But if somebody else is going to go to the trouble of running one for me, well, why the hell not? Now, I don't want to advertise this Discord server too much right now, because I'm not entirely sure how this whole Discord thing works, and I'm pretty sure that, well, if there are thousands and thousands of people suddenly clamouring to get onto this Discord server, poor old Kyle may not have the capacity. So here's what I'm going to do. Oh, Sergeant Chevron is typing something in Discord right now. They're probably trying to figure out whether or not I'm the real thing. If this turns out to be a popular idea, and I'll probably get back to this subject in next week's episode of Mingles with Jingles once I've had a word with Kyle, I'm happy, providing there's enough demand for it. If there's any kind of costs associated with maintaining a larger, I don't know, maybe you have to register or become a Discord partner, if you've got thousands of people on Discord, I'll have to find out. I'm quite happy to cover Kyle's costs if he's prepared to run this community for me, which he clearly seems to want to do. So, in next week's episode of Mingles with Jingles, well, stay posted for further news on this development. And that just about covers everything that I really wanted to talk about in this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. Well, it covers everything that I can talk about in this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. There are other things that I wanted to talk about. Sitting in my port in World of Warships, I have all of the brand new British destroyers just waiting to be played. But, you know, as we've already established, I can't play them because my connection sucks. So that's more than a little annoying and frustrating. But then again, you're not exactly spoilt for choice when it comes to community contributors covering the British destroyers. It's just, you know, me. I'm the one who can't play them. Well, I can, but it would be like watching a slideshow. So that's a bit of a bummer, but there's nothing I can do about it. So, yeah. And I'm sure that there's something that I meant to talk about in this week's episode that I'd just, you know, completely forgotten because, as we all know, I am old and crap. And I've no doubt that as soon as I finish rendering this video, I'll suddenly remember and then have to slap myself silly by way of compensation. But until that happens, that's pretty much it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you once again to everybody who supports me on Patreon. Because of you, all of these episodes of Mingles with Jingles are advert-free. I hope you've enjoyed your weekend. Now forget it, get your asses back in the salt mines because it's Monday. And in the meantime, take care. And I'll catch you next time.